You've got questions. Your parents have questions. Everyone, at some point, will have questions about downsizing. Well, we have answers. This is the Helping My Parents Move podcast, covering everything you need to know to help your parents downsize. Now, here's your host, Carly Gibson with RE/MAX of Nanaimo.
Good morning. So imagine this, your parents or you're in your big family home and you're seeing the big daunting task of downsizing. You've been collecting things for years, right? Decades in the same home, memories, clutter, emotions. It's enough to make anybody freeze in their tracks, right? So maybe you're visiting a parent from come on a holiday, right? And dad didn't put up the Christmas lights this year and they pull off the family dinner, but you kind of leave and you're wondering like, is there a better way that I can help them with this? How do I help them from afar? And what does that look like? What if there was a way to make this process smoother and less stressful and even empowering? Well, I'm Carly Gibson with RE/MAX of Nanaimo and Ian Thompson and Associates. And today in this episode of Helping My Parents Move, we are diving into the world of downsizing and decluttering with expert Raylyn Varga from Refine Home. And so she's here to share her top strategies of turning chaos into calm and making the transition into a smaller space feel like a fresh new chapter. So let's get started. So welcome, Ray. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Carly. This is always one of my favorite topics. Downsizing, organizing, decluttering. Those are kind of the key catchwords. So, yeah,
Yeah,
here I am.
it's
So,
nice when somebody loves those things because some of us go, "Oh, organized," and they think of their junk drawer.
yeah.
I've had the pleasure of working with you, and I just love how you ask the hard questions in a way that people can respond to it. Like it's almost a challenge. Like, are you ready to downsize? And
hmm
you kind of look for the resistance and the
hmm
emotional readiness, and so yeah, I think it's nice to have some your insight into how you walk through that with people. So
Yeah,
let's
good, good.
let's get into the hard questions here.
Sounds
As you know, downsizing can be overwhelming, especially for older adults who've lived in their home for decades, right? So, what is the biggest challenge that you encounter when helping families with this process?
Okay, so this is a really, really good question. So, I mean, I think right out of the gate, really what happens to people is they don't know where to start. That is really, when you think about it, it's the number one challenge for most people is starting. It could be the same thing with an exercise program. It could be the same thing with starting a new habit. Where do I start?
Mhm.
And because people are overwhelmed with the amount of stuff or just the process and not knowing the process, we tend to avoid where we need to go.
Yeah, it's like
So
an
people
ostrich with their head in the sand. It's like, I can see that, but I'm just gonna like yeah.
right? So what starts out as a little pile of junk in the junk drawer or a little bit of, stuff in the dumping zone becomes these giant piles. And the space in the house that nobody really uses could be the spare bedroom, it could be a garage spot. It becomes a mountain of
Mhm.
stuff because you can close the door. It's so overwhelming. You'll deal with it later. So we tend to avoid that space and it just becomes too much.
And we add
Then
to
people
it too. We add stuff
right,
to it, right?
yeah, ongoing, right? So I think when truthfully, when I see people, I think the biggest thing is people say to me, I just don't know where to start. And it's because those piles have grown. It's because the volume has grown over the months and years. And we avoid it because it's not super fun.
And you probably see, like, I'm just thinking from my realtor lens too, right? Like we see people with their family home and it has become this magnitude because it's sometimes not just their stuff, right? Like they're like, "Oh, well these are my son's baseball trophies.
Mhm.
And there's a sentimental piece that you're never going to display them. They're all in a box, but there's something hard about it to get rid of it, right? And so I think that adds to the hesitation to move forward.
It's really true, and, when I do, like, downsizing seminars, I always ask people, just for fun, is how many people are housing things for other people?
Right.
And I'm gonna say truthfully that almost everybody's hand goes up.
Hmm.
It's an aging parent that they're taking things from an aging parent or a parent that's passed on. They don't wanna get rid of the stuff from their parents, so they bring it all to their house.
Hmm.
We have kids that are in between staying home, but getting on with their life, and we're housing a lot of people are housing their kids' keepsakes.
Yep. Yep. My mom's got a box of my sister's still, right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. I have 3 older kids, and I don't know how many times I moved those giant totes with the colored lids from house to house to house. My
Totally.
kids are now in their 30s. I think in the last 5 or 6 years, I'm like, "I'm out. I'm done. No more. I don't
I'm
need
not
it.
storing anything for you anymore,
No more."
right? You gotta
So,
draw
what
that
happens?
line. Yeah.
What happens? We become sort of the holding tank for all the other people in our lives. So, really, it's not uncommon for people to be housing things that don't even belong to them,
Yeah, fair enough, and it's,
right?
like, based out of love, but I there's a fine line, right? So, that leads
Mhm.
us to our next question. So, how do you help them approach this in a
Yeah,
manageable and less stressful way? And,
yeah,
like, so that we can get this done, right?
yeah. Well, I'm a big, advocate of, like, I can come with all these solutions and answers, but I'm a big fan of saying to people and asking people the questions because often, here's the thing that I've experienced, people already know the answer. They already know what they feel about their spaces. They kind of already know what they want to do. The challenge is how to get it started, and I lead them there. So when I meet a client and I go do a consultation, right out of the gate, I ask what the question is, tell me where the overwhelming feeling comes from. Tell me why you feel paralyzed by this process of downsizing. What is it? Like, what are you feeling about this? It's important for me to know how people feel
Mhm,
about their spaces, whether they're downsizing, whether they're moving, decluttering, or organizing. I want to know what's going on for you because
mhm,
then I know how to be the most useful. Because I can't assume anything when I'm walking into someone's home. So I ask the questions. Here's an example. What areas of the home feel the most overwhelming? What do you really want to see at the end of this process? So that is the number one thing is I ask questions and I get a lot of great information. The second question I ask is, how do you think you are at making decisions?
mhm.
Sometimes it takes a long time for me to decide which cards I want to keep that people have given me, or can I just recycle them? That takes time. And decision making is probably the most exhausting part of the process. And I tell people as well, my job's really easy. Their job is hard because they're making the decisions. So I guide that process. I pay attention to their energy level. I want to maybe give them a break if we need to give them a break. So I really talk about that whole process. The third question is, or sorry, the second part of the answer to that is, sorry, is let's do a walkthrough.
Mhm. So you
So
can see.
show me around. Show
Mhm.
me your spaces. And I like that because you know what it does? It gives that person a chance to say, you know, this is what I'm dealing with. And they're feeling overwhelmed. And I think just by having me alongside, they're okay, good. Like it's like talking to your friend across the table when you're having
Yeah.
coffee about something really hard in your life. They're just kind of like, just unloading it. And I have lots of clients that don't have very much support with a move, with a transition.
For sure, right? People come here to retire and their kids live somewhere else, and so they're
100%.
they're working through this on their own, and I love how you that word alongside, right? So you kinda you identify how they're feeling about it, and that's really important for people, and then what do you want this space to look like? So you catch their vision, right? And so you make it's a real partnership with your clients, right? You're really
Mhm,
working
mhm,
with them
mhm.
for what their vision was for the space in the first place, right?
Yeah, it's really important, and you know what? I think what happens in this industry of organizing, especially organizing, and downsizing too, because I don't think you can organize without downsizing. That's sort of another part of my formula. You need to do both. I think what happens is we get this very social media idea of professional organizing and downsizing.
Right.
You see all these beautiful before and afters, and hey, I love a good before and after, don't get me wrong. I
Yeah,
love it too.
for sure.
However, to have somebody come in and just take over your pantry and make it look all beautiful with the containers and it's social media ready, that's great.
Mhm.
But for me, in my work, I want to work alongside you because it will have a lasting impact on what happens in your home, whether it's your new home or whether it's the home that you're staying in that we're working and organizing together. I want to give you the tools and the system and that ability to make those decisions without me.
Skills,
Like,
right, that you can
yeah,
transfer
like,
into your next space, for
hmm,
sure.
yeah. So I want to work alongside you. I want to know you. I want you to trust me and get to know me. And let's be solution based together. And sure, I have a lot of the ideas and expertise, but I think, what makes it really effective is that my client feels like they're part of it and that their feelings are acknowledged. So
Mhm.
when we do a walkthrough and we're in a space, people are able to share, like, "This keeps me awake at night, Ray."
Totally.
So, and the other comment I wanted to make about that is I get this all the time, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, Carly, is that people are terrified of being judged
Oh, for
by
sure. Yep.
the amount of chaos, and I'm gonna say, especially in the last 6 months, and it's just some kind of, it cycles the kind of clients that kinda
Mhm.
come forward. I think people are becoming more capable of just saying, "I need some help."
Right, because
So
it's
do
got
they.
to a point where I feel embarrassed or it's too much now, so I need a help, but I don't wanna show you the amount of help I need, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
People will say to me, "Before you come and see me, no judgment," right? And that's just I always tell people I really don't have any rules, but that is one of my rules is that, or guidelines is you're calling me because you need help, and this is my expertise. I'm here to help you. It's okay to ask for help. And I'm coming with lenses to have a look at your spaces. And I honestly will say, like, once I have my foot in the door and we're connecting and we're walking through, I feel really confident. Like, I want people to feel it's okay. Like,
Mhm.
I see some spaces that are really in trouble. I'm not gonna kid you on
Yeah.
that. Like, they're really in over their head, right?
And I think that's such an important point when you say, like, they don't wanna ask for help, but they need your help, and, it's a skill set, right? Like, so
Mm,
this is a professional skill set that you're bringing to them to be able to help them
mhm,
and share those skills with them if they want to learn them, right? But I think everybody has things that they're good at, and people don't need to be embarrassed if they need help, right? They can
mhm.
reach out and know that you're able to walk alongside them without judgment, so I think that's awesome.
I love that you said that, and that's really the truth is that, people need to feel comfortable. I'm in there touching their stuff and looking at their homes. That's a ginormous thing.
Totally.
So that's really part of it. So when we talk about the solutions of how to help people manage this,
Mhm,
it's about asking questions. Let's do a walkthrough. We'll talk more about this in some of your other questions as well, is,
mhm.
not taking it all on, that
Right.
I'm here to guide you. You're
Bit
not
by bit,
alone.
right? The proverbial elephant, one bite at a time, right? So
Yep,
actually,
absolutely.
this is a good segue into the next question because I think
Yeah,
that,
sure.
like, the emotional attachment to possessions is like the big overlying elephant in the room, right? So this is the biggest hurdle to downsizing that most people really feel, right? It's like, oh, right? Like, what do I do with, like I say, the box of Nancy Drew books for my kids, or the trophies, or somebody important gave me this withered bouquet of flowers that I carried down the aisle when I was a bridesmaid, but I just can't quite part with it, even though I have 100 pictures of it, right? So how do you walk your clients through being able to part with sentimental items?
Yeah, it's really the one part of it's a good question. It's the one part of the process that halts most people.
Hmm.
And it's also sometimes the timing of it because, I meet lots of clients that have not gone through their spouse's clothes and they've passed on
Right.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
I want to share a story. It was really, I learned so much from my clients. It was a couple summers ago. We were doing a job in Victoria, and this elderly couple had a son pass on
Oh,
22 years ago at the age of 22.
wow.
They
Right.
hadn't
Of
even gone into his room.
course. Wow.
So they were never ready to deal with it. They were never ready to go through his personal things. And we tasked our team was tasked with that.
Hmm.
And, you know, how did we bring that stuff back to the client and say, what do you want to do with these things? First of all, I asked them, do you want to see what's in that room? Are you ready to tackle this sentimental stuff? And they said, not yet.
Right.
And so near the end of the process, we went back and visited those things.
Hmm.
So really, sometimes it's about timing. Are people really ready to touch the things? And if people are ready to do it, this is always a question for me, or a statement that I give people, is that making decisions on sentimentals and keepsakes and memorabilia will be the hardest part of the job because we feel a real deep sense of obligation and guilt
Hmm.
to either keep it, and the guilt in letting it go.
So there's an
So
emotional preparation that clients have to
mm,
do, right?
you think about, yeah, that. You think about the cake platter that was your mom's mom.
Yeah.
I see this all the time with things. I'll say to them, do you use the cake platter? No, but I should keep it. It's my mom's.
Yeah,
So when
so
I
they feel there's a sense of obligation almost, right?
so when I hear that, just a little kind of thing goes off in my head. So I'll say to the client, you are allowed in this process to give yourself permission to let things go. I actually say the words more than once.
Powerful, right?
You are allowed to give yourself permission to let things go. You are no longer tied to, I have to keep this because.
Right,
And it's like that, giving yourself some grace that it's okay. Like, I don't have to keep it. I don't use it.
right,
And I hear people saying, well, I don't really use it, but I feel like I should keep it. And then of course the obvious is, does somebody else want it
right,
in
of
the
course.
family? Does somebody else want that sentimental thing that you really don't have room to take? And then there's other clients I have that are just like, just get rid of it.
They've reached a
Yeah.
point where now, like, they get it and they're ready to release things.
I think that yeah, and I think it's just really important when we get to those things. And I know how hard it is. I mean, I'm certainly not like the perfect professional organizer. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was just downsizing my storage unit. I had this large storage unit. I'm deciding, I'm like everybody else. It's like you fill up a 10 by 20 storage unit, you get a storage unit, you fill it up. And I stood there one day and I thought, what's in here? It's really my business storage unit.
Yeah.
But a part of it was my personal stuff.
Mhm.
So I thought, you know what? Here we go. I'm going to do this. And I was pulling out these bins, and I had trophies in there that
Ha!
when from when I was like 19 years old.
Awesome.
Now, did I take my own advice? No, I kept them
Right.
because I know I know that other parts of my life are very minimalistic, and there's going to be about 2 or 3 bins God forbid if something happens, my kids will throw them out or they'll keep them for a little bit and then they'll deal with them. So I know for me that because I live very minimalistically in that way, I'm not leaving them with a garage of Raylan sentimentals.
But maybe 3 bins, and that's okay, so everybody
So
has this amount maybe.
that was my giving myself permission and giving myself a little bit of grace that, and they'll eventually find their way somewhere else. But yeah, I know it's not really an easy thing because things have meaning and
Yeah,
it's usually value find money wise, monetary. It's emotional, right?
totally. So
Yeah.
I guess other than, like, asking the questions, are there other methods that you use to help ease that transition and, like, make it less stressful? I guess, like, do they take photos of things that could be important or
Mhm.
have been set aside, or I guess, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, what are we going to do with the stuff that is, kind of in that maybe pile or the absolute keep? So, one of the things I do when we get to this point, and again, everybody has varying sort of levels of how much stuff they need to keep or want to keep,
Mhm,
or should keep. We talk about, how much space do you have where you're going?
mhm.
So if we're moving someone from a family home into, let's say, retirement living, which is a two-bedroom or a one-bedroom, we might have a closet. That person might have a small storage space in the building.
Mhm.
Somebody might have a family member that has some space in their garage. So we talk about what space do we really have to keep some of these things?
Oh, you make them, like, face the practicality of it. Good job. Fair enough.
Well, sure, right? I mean, it's all great and grand that you want to pack up 14 boxes of the hutch because you got to keep it. But where are we going to put it?
Right.
We don't I don't want you to rent a storage unit for the next 5 years to house something that you're never gonna use.
Well, and I mean, we've seen when we've asked for help sometimes when they just move in and there is nowhere to put it, right? And then that's no fun at all. It actually ruins the
Yeah,
vision for their space, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get real. Where is this stuff gonna go? So that's kinda one thing, and then we decide on that, and then I, come up with a sort of recommendation, like, let's use this size vessel, this size box, this size container. Let's see what we can put in here that's gonna house us because we have a great spot for it in your new place, or, something like that.
Mhm.
So that kinda limits what we're putting in. The other thing that I love to do, and I did this with a client, a couple of years ago, she was a senior lady, she was so great. I spent probably 5 weeks with her, like, just in and out for 5 weeks and preparing her to move back east, and she'd lived in her home for about 50 some years.
Okay, wow.
All her kids were
Yeah.
raised there.
Wow.
And, the baby boomer generation, they kept every birthday card, they
Mhm.
kept letters because people wrote letters. She kept her school books when she was a little girl. It was such a fabulous journey with, like, and I felt really honored to be part of it.
Yeah.
So she would read me letters, and I said to her, "What do you wanna do with those?" And she goes, "Are you gonna tell me to throw them out?" I said, "I'm not gonna tell you to throw them out." But let's think about how we can keep them. So one of the things we did was her son was super savvy on the computer, so scanned a lot
Oh,
of the
that's
letters,
such a great idea. Yeah.
and these were love letters from her husband that passed
Oh,
on.
that's so beautiful.
So they were scanned and put into a book.
Mhm.
Those wonderful, like, chapbooks and,
Yeah,
you
now
know
it's a keepsake that even, like, they can pass along, right?
and I'm gonna tell you something about that, and I know people are like, "Well, I really wanna keep the actual thing." I gotta tell you, if the cards are in the box, if the letters are in the box, if the photos, if the kids' artwork is stuffed in a drawer, the chances of you going back there are very slim. But once you take all those great memories and you put them in a book or in
Mhm.
another place, there's even places on the computer. My good friend has digitized a lot of stuff for people. You are more likely to go back to it and reminisce.
'Cause it's easier to find, right? Yeah,
And it's so enjoyable. I love seeing kids with their chapbooks, with their artwork from kindergarten. Flip,
totally,
flip, flip. It's fabulous. I love it. And then it's one less thing to have to deal with.
totally. Oh, I think that's such a great idea.
Yeah, it really, really is good. So it's really about finding other solutions of what to do with the stuff so we can let it go.
Fair enough. So now we've gone through the decluttering. We've gone
Yeah.
through like getting rid of things that we're emotionally attached to, and you've given us some really good examples of like how you can help people through that. So now once we're done and you know, we're in our new space and Raylan has worked her magic with us, what are practical tips that you give to people to stay organized long term once you're gone, right? Like,
Yeah.
can I do this without Raylan? Can I?
Mhm. Yeah, that's my goal. That's always my goal is that, you can call me and hire me back. And I work with lots of clients and I help them maintain their spaces. I pop in there sometimes once a month. I work with clients.
Okay.
Sometimes I work with clients twice a month and help them maintain their spaces. And then sometimes they see me every 3 months, whatever it is. Ultimately, my goal is to give you the tools, to
Right.
give you, the capacity to feel like you're managing your own home. And that's the beauty of me working alongside you. And I will tell you right out of the gate, a lot of my clients will say to me, "Oh, I get this process. Remember when you were saying to do this? I feel like I'm doing this now." And sometimes at all hours of the night, I'll get pictures from my clients of spaces that they've organized on their own. And I'm just like, yeah, it's so exciting.
I guess
So,
it's kind of
go
like
ahead.
what you said at the beginning, right? It's like when you're going to the gym or you're going to start anything new, it's a practice, it's a habit. And so I
Mm,
love that you say sometimes you check in once or twice a month or every 3 months with people in
mm.
their new space because it's totally whatever you put your energy and effort towards and maintaining, right? That is, yeah, it's the same thing. Whatever you put effort towards will be that way, right? So,
It is. I mean, just maintaining your home and staying organized, it's not a given. It's a new habit for people, for
mhm,
most people. Because if you're used to just plunking things down, if you don't have a, schedule that helps you stay on top of things, you're going to have to learn a new habit and takes several weeks. That's why people hire coaches. That's why people have personal trainers. It's to help you stay on track. I'm going to help you stay on track.
yeah.
Even when it's all said and done, I tell people, listen, if you want me to pop back in and help you do some maintenance, just give me a call. But my ultimate goal is to give you the tools so that you can create some new habits. So, what does that look like? The
Mhm,
number one thing is mostly for people about in regard to how we get to that point of feeling super disorganized or not staying on top of our house
mhm.
and all the tasks that are involved with it is time. We just don't make the time. We don't have the time. It's daunting still. It's not a habit to go and stay on top of the piles of things. So,
Right.
really, that's one of the barriers for people. So, I encourage people to set aside that time at the end of the day, once a week, once a month.
Whatever is scheduled gets done, and it doesn't change with the organizing your house. That's such a good point, right?
Well, and I'm going to be honest, like I don't know, like when I first started out, back in the day when I took up running, we do this a lot with a new thing that we're taking on, whether it's new exercise equipment or new running shoes. I got my new running shoes and I'm like, I'm ready to go. I got new, new, new. It feels good. I'm going to sign up my new membership. I got my new whatever going on. And you feel amped up about
You
it.
got big goals and I'm just going for it, right? Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like to look at it in from this same point of view that when you get me to come in and work alongside you and identify the areas in their home that are challenging for you, we're going to start new. We're going to, I don't call it starting over. Starting over sounds depressing. We're going to start again.
Mhm.
We're going to start again and we're going to get this space and all these spaces that you feel overwhelmed with. We're going to get you to kind of that nice starting point.
Mhm.
Things are decluttered, they're organized, decisions have been made. We have these great containers that's labeled. The kids are going to know where to put their stuff. That feels amazing. It's like
Totally.
putting on your new now you got your new runners on. You're ready to go. And
Yeah,
then you're starting again. So that just feels like, okay,
totally.
reset. reset. And that just feels really exciting. And it's a good starting point to start a new habit, to implement a new nighttime, regime. It's a good point to start a new kind of sort of ways of living in your house because it's like, okay,
I think
this
it's
feels manageable.
good insight, right? It's almost like you're kind of well, I mean, you do organizing and decluttering, but you're kind of a mindset coach around people and their stuff, right? Like you help them see it in a different light. And so
Mm,
I love how you said that. Fresh start, right? It's not starting over, it's fresh. So that's a
yeah,
difference. It does, it feels different.
it's when you say, "Oh, I'm starting my workout again. Starting my membership again," or over. It just feels like over and over and over. It's again.
It's again.
And sometimes you have to keep, you know, again and again, just resetting yourself, getting back into a space. So I tell my clients before I leave, if you feel like this space is becoming what it was before we started, just start again and use the same formula that we used and go back in there and do a reset.
Mhm.
Because we don't always get it right out of the gate. And sometimes we'll spend our whole life just learning how to keep our house organized. It's okay. We don't have to do it all at once. So just go back and do kind of bite-sized pieces. Take off a little space and just work in that space and reset again
Totally.
so that it doesn't get to that place where you want to avoid it. So I just try to it is really about the stuff we tell ourselves,
Mhm.
right? So yeah.
Absolutely, right? If you think about it
Yeah.
differently, you will feel differently, right? So, it
That's 100%. This is the same thing.
totally. Okay, so we've waded through a lot of different things, and now I'm into not about the emotional attachment to things. How do we make practical decisions, especially in the family home? Like now I have 8 casserole dishes and
Yeah.
13 cookie sheets. So
Yeah.
how do you help people make intentional decisions about what they actually keep?
Mhm, mhm. Well, the obvious one is, do I use it? Do I really, really need it? And it's not just a yes or no,
Right.
because there's a lot of different size casserole dishes. And I always joke about this a little bit when I do my downsizing seminars. We talk about a lot of the woman's stuff, but men have their stuff too.
Mhm.
And it's not just in the workshop, it's in their closets because men tend not to. I love it though. Men don't go into their clothes and figure out what shirts don't fit them anymore from, like, 20 years ago. There's no way they're gonna fit a
We just
size.
keep it forever.
And it's the same thing with ties. I gotta tell you, I love these clients. They're friends of mine, but I just love them to bits. And we're working in his closet, and I loved it. We were going through all his ties from, like, every generation.
Oh, it's
Like,
kind of fun, right? The styles
the
change, right? Yeah.
the skinny little Kevin Bacon ties to the big chunky ties, and it was just this all on the bed, and I thought, "Wow, this is gorgeous, I love this." But after we joked a little bit, it was really like, "What are you really gonna use?" And then he said to me, "Some of these are gonna be sentimental."
Right,
So then we start to sort and categorize our piles. Keep, use, I can let go of that.
right.
So it's just we just have to really break it down into, like, thinking about what am I gonna wear? What really am I attached to? And the rest is like, what can we upcycle? What can we donate? So really it's about the practicality of, do I need this amount of stuff? And do I really use this amount of stuff? So one of the key things I tell people is you can't really make those decisions until you see every single thing that you have. I want you to see all of your bakeware. So that's why we talk about, as organizers, get everything out of the closet. I want you to see how many
The magnitude, right?
towels you own. I want you to see how many ties you own, because there's no way to really make those decisions until you see what the volume is. And another perfect example is like glassware,
Mm,
like, and mugs.
And you have the perfect ones that are only for a special occasion that you never use, right? Yeah,
That's right. So, here's a thought on that, and that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Things that are special occasion, and I have clients that are very themey, seasonal people. They've
mhm,
got their Halloween bins,
yeah,
their Easter bins, and I certainly had that when I had my kids were younger. I loved it. You take those mugs and those plates and those napkins and the funky, crazy Halloween tie,
right.
and it goes in the seasonal bin.
Smart. Yeah, fair enough.
So here comes Halloween,
Mhm,
here comes Easter, all those special occasions, and in that are those bits that belong to that season.
mhm.
Season's over,
Goes
back it
packed
goes,
away, right?
bye-bye. Mhm. Because you think about it, I have the same issue in my with my mugs, over the years, you get mug after mug,
World's best
whatever.
mom, still world's best mom, best grandma now, right? Yeah.
I know, right? And here's the thing is, I got a 20-year-old still at home, and I'm like I said to him the other day, "You have a lot of mugs for a kid." Like, you're not even an old person, like, you have a lot of mugs. But, we started going through them, and we took out the Christmas mugs, and we put them in our Christmas bins.
Smart.
Then you're just freeing up space, right? So
Yeah,
don't be afraid to do that. So it's really starting to think about, what you have in volume, and can we this is another key word I use, I love it, is where can we relocate this?
right. Because it
It's not
might
an
have a good, better life somewhere else. Where's its best life, right?
And I mean, when I say that, I mean, like, is this really in the right place in the house? Because it's taking up really good real estate in a place that we could be using
Mhm,
more practically.
right,
So when I'm doing an organizing job or downsizing job, we always have a box that says relocate, and it's always full because I'm like, where would you look for this item if it wasn't in this spot? And they're like, this is probably should be in the laundry room. It's a package of batteries.
right.
So I'm like, "Okay, get it in the relocate box before I leave, before you go to bed, before the month is out. I need a person to go back into that relocate box and get it to where it needs to go." And if it's something that you actually don't I don't know where I'd look for it, you probably don't need it.
Right.
So there's some little tips just of things to think about when you're going through the stuff and trying to figure out, like, is this meaningful to me? It
Mhm.
is. Great. Can it be relocated? Or do I really even need to use it at all? So those are just kind of some of the questions. And I try to get my
You're
clients to
so good, right? You just gently kinda nudge people along in the right way, right? Like
yeah, because people, have this idea of like, oh, are you going to tell me to get rid of my stuff? Well, I'm going to lead you to the place where you're going to figure it out on your own.
I'm gonna ask you the hard questions and yeah, give you a nudge.
I'll lead you there,
Oh,
and I'd say I haven't really had anyone say to me, she's so tough on us. It's gonna be that kind of not even firm, but loving. It's gonna be more nudging and loving and guiding and working alongside you. It's really about, giving you the skills so that when I walk out that door and you come upon this again, because you will,
mhm.
that you can make those decisions on your own. And if you're not, you're gonna call me.
Totally. So let's
Yeah,
talk a
yeah,
little bit more about that because I think, after hearing all the answers to these questions and all these tips, we've worked together before, you really do
yeah.
walk alongside people. So if people want to reach out to you, how do they get a hold of you, Ray?
Sure, I have a website. So my company is Refine Home Inc., like INC. So people can go into my website. It's refinehomeinc.com. People text me. If you go onto my website, there's an actual form on there that you can fill out. People text me directly saying, "Hi, I'm so and so. I heard that you do downsizing. You
Great.
can call me." If you text me or email me, I'm going to want to talk to you on the phone anyways because it just feels more personable.
Perfect.
And it gives me a sense of what your needs are and how I can be useful. I mean, most of the time, I think it's a good match. And then the next part of it is I'll come and do a free consultation so that, I can get to know you and sort of feel what you're feeling.
Sounds great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave your contact information in the links below here too.
Okay, great.
And if you do have other questions about downsizing, you can also go to our website at www.howtogetstarted.ca if you're needing help with real estate. But Ray is one of our trusted partners and we love working with her, and our clients do too. So thanks so much for being with us today, Ray. That was lots
Yeah.
of great tips that I'm going to take home to my sentimental items that I've been hanging on to for maybe a bit too long. So
Yeah, we're all in the same boat. Thanks so much for having me, Carly. It's been really, really great, and people can reach out. I know sometimes I do consultations over the phone as well, so any way that people wanna get some help, I'm here.
perfect. Thank you so much. Have a great
My
day.
pleasure. You too, thanks. See you later, Carly.
Got questions about downsizing? Don't miss the Helping My Parents Move podcast, hosted by Carly Gibson with Remax of Nanaimo. New episodes on the last Monday of every month. For more great resources to help your parents downsize, go to howtogetstarted.ca.